Find Me in Your Dreams, a fantasy novel by Victoria Veles. We Are the Dreamers series. Book 1. Chapter 3. When Monsters Visit You. Next morning, relieved that it was Saturday and there was no school, I came down to the kitchen for breakfast. Nana was already bustling around the kitchen, her usual energetic self. That night my dreams were surprisingly normal, nothing scary or weird. They had even been pleasant for a change, with a sensation of flying that lingered in my memory. I wished more of my dreams were like that. "Hey Nana," I greeted, pleased to see her looking back to her usual self. "What's for breakfast?" I inquired, knowing she liked to treat us with something special on the weekends. "It's a new pancake recipe I picked up from a friend," she replied, busy with her pots. "It's made with gooseberries and huckleberries. And I've also prepared this herbal tea that's great during flu season, it'll boost your immune system," she added with a touch too much enthusiasm. This raised my suspicions again. Nana wasn't one to experiment with food or feed us something overly healthy. She wasn't usually one of those people who would pick up new trends. We were used to a stable white American diet, although without all the junk food. I took a sip of the tea that Nana handed me. I found it surprisingly pleasant, with hints of blueberries and mint. "How is it?" she asked with an unnaturally bright smile on her face. "It is nice," I replied. "That's good," Nana beamed even wider, clearly pleased that I didn't dislike the tea. "Drink up more, and I'll call Claire for breakfast." I kept throwing glances at Nana all throughout the morning. Why was she acting so weird? It was a quiet day at home, nothing special was happening. I slipped out with Apollo and headed into the forest, determined to see the boy again. Something had changed since the first day I saw him, and I was set on figuring out why. Today wasn't as warm and pleasant as the last couple of days have been. The sky was overcast, with clouds hanging low, threatening rain at any moment. Gusts of cold wind stirred the trees above, some creaking with every sway. Definitely not as peaceful, I thought to myself. I huddled deeper into my jacket, wishing I had worn something warmer. A hat and gloves wouldn't hurt either, but I wasn't about to turn back home, I would just have to endure the cold. So I repeated the same routine as before. I found the same stump and sat down, trying to ignore the chill. Then with frozen fingers I pulled out my iPod and started the track. The same relaxing music and voice gave instructions on what to do. I tried to focus, tuning out everything, waiting for the effect to take place. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. But instead of feeling calm, I grew more frustrated with every passing minute. I tried harder, forcing myself to take deeper breaths, willing my body and mind to relax. "Come on," I urged silently, "work." But there was nothing happening except the music and voice on the track and whooshing of the wind around me. I exhaled with exasperation and opened my eyes, hoping that maybe I would still see the boy. After all, the last time I didn't see him until I opened my eyes. But there was nothing out of place, just trees swaying in the wind and Apollo sniffing around. Then, I felt a drop on my cheek. Perfect, just perfect, I thought resigned. Just when I tried to do something on purpose, it refused to work. Why can't I ever make things happen when I want them to? I mumbled to myself as I reluctantly got up and hurried back home before the rain came down in full force. Nana hated the smell of a wet dog. I locked myself in my room for the rest of the day. I could feel the frustration building inside me, as if a whole pack of lions was about to break free. I tried to observe my emotions, as Miss Julie said, but they weren't settling down. They were just getting stronger and stronger, inching closer and closer to taking over me. How I hated feeling like I was a danger to the people around me. I decided to try to meditate again, but this time just to calm down. I sat on my bed with my back against the headboard and followed the instructions on the track. I was surprised to notice that it didn't take long to start feeling like the tension that had been gripping my body began to release. My shoulders lowered, and my jaw unclenched, my breath became deeper. And for a brief moment, I felt relaxed. Then, a part of my mind got annoyed that it hadn't worked in the forest when I wanted it to, but it was working just fine at this moment. But then another part of me alerted me to the fact that I was getting annoyed, which allowed me to stop myself from getting further annoyed. Then, a third part thought that it was very interesting to witness this interplay inside myself. Next, a thought came through that maybe meditation was working since I was able to interrupt my reaction before it got out of hand. However, the first part interfered again and questioned whether it was healthy to think of myself in this fragmented way. It planted an idea that maybe things were worse than I thought, and this is only aggravating an already bad situation. I could feel something in me wanting to disagree with that, but then I heard the scream. A gut-wrenching scream of horror. At first, I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. Was it another strange noise that I couldn't find an explanation for? But then I heard another scream, and I knew it was Claire. The scream was coming from her room next door. I jumped up from my bed and ran to the door with Apollo beside me. I got to Claire's door at the same time as Nana. We gave each other a brief look of horror before yanking the door open and trying to squeeze through the doorway at the same time. Apollo ran ahead, frantically scanning the room with us. Claire was sitting on her bed, her eyes wide open in shock. "What is it?" I yelled, but Claire just kept staring into the spot in the corner of her room. "Claire, dear, why were you screaming?" Nana asked as she sat beside Claire on the bed and wrapped her in her arms. I saw something," she stammered out. Nana asked while still holding Claire, "What did you see?" Claire's gaze remained locked on the corner of her room. I saw a man, there in the corner." She pointed with her finger into the corner she was staring at. "But he wasn't just a man. He looked scary." Claire finally broke her gaze from the corner and tucked her head into Nana's shoulder. "Nana, I got so scared." I whirled my head around, searching for the man. "Claire, where did the man go?" I asked. "I don't know," she said into Nana's shoulder in a raspy voice. I just screamed and closed my eyes when I saw him. When I opened my eyes, he was gone. I promise I'm not making this up, he was there. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. I scanned the room. There was no place for anyone to hide. Claire only had a few pieces of furniture around, none of them big enough to hide a grown man. There was no way he would be able to get out of the room without running into one of us as we rushed to see why Claire was screaming. I went to check the window. Behind the curtain, the window was locked. Nana and I exchanged a concerned look. "Claire, darling," Nana started carefully, "you said that the man was scary. What did you mean?" "He had these holes, dark holes where his eyes are supposed to be," she gestured with her hands showing on her face as she described. And when he smiled, it was somehow wicked. The tears were still streaming down her face. I believed that Claire saw something that terrified her. She wasn't usually one to come up with stories about monsters under her bed. But I had no explanation for where this particular monster would have gone. I shot another glance at Nana, hoping she would know how to handle the situation. But when I looked at her, she was just staring frozen at the same corner that Claire did just minutes ago. My eyes shot up to the spot, braced for whatever was there, but I saw nothing but Claire's dancing shoes lying in disarray. "Nana!" I called out. "Grandma!" I called out again when I saw no reaction. I was about to approach her and shake her out of her stupor when she finally looked at me. "Did you see something?" I asked, on high alert. "Huh, see what?" she asked absent-mindedly. "You were staring at the corner where the man was." "Did you see him too?" I asked, starting to lose it a bit. I couldn't be the only one on top of this situation. "Oh no," she said slowly, as if her mind was still somewhere else. "I didn't see anything." My eyebrows furrowed in confusion. "But you were looking that way," I started to say, pointing to the corner. And then I decided it wasn't worth pursuing the matter further. Everyone was just stressed out. "Do you think we should call the police?" I asked Nana. "No," she said quickly, finally snapping out of her dazed state. And then she got up and said, "Girls, I need to tell you something. Come to the kitchen, I'll make us some tea and we can talk." We watched as she walked out of the room and headed downstairs. Claire and I exchanged glances. It wasn't often that we had anything resembling the talk, so I knew this was something important. "Come on," I said to Claire. I kneeled beside her and wiped her tears, then I gave her a hug and said, "Let's go get some tea." I held her hand as we walked downstairs to the kitchen. Nana was already sitting at the kitchen island, 3 cups of steaming tea right in front of her. I took a seat, with my eyes fixed on Nana. "What is it?" I asked, my voice tinged with worry. "I need to talk to you about your father." "Our father?" I asked, surprised. "Yes, your father. He had secrets." "Like what?" I asked, not sure whether I was more curious or surprised that Nana brought up our father on a night like this. Claire sat quietly beside me, likely still not fully recovered from the shock. "I don't have all the details," he didn't share much. "But I do know that there was something where someone your father tried to escape from back in England." He never explained exactly what he was worried about, at least not to me. I had to piece it together from the bits of information that he did share. Even without knowing that, you could see that there was something off. He was always very cautious, too cautious, always on high alert. There were a number of things that he absolutely forbade us to do, I mean me and your mom, especially when you girls were around. This was the first time I had ever heard about all this. "What kind of things?" "We were forbidden from engaging in any metaphysical activities, including meditation," she explained. "He made sure there weren't any books in the house about religion, spirituality, or anything that would contain any of these topics. We were not to drink alcohol or use any mind-altering substances or engage in any activities that he called numbing." It was probably the first time I saw Nana using air quotes as she said the word numbing. He said those included all activities that were intended to numb our own pain, physical or emotional. "Did he say why?" "Not exactly. He just said that there were forces in this world beyond our understanding and that they were looking for him. By engaging in any of these activities, he feared he might become visible to them, and by extension, you girls as well." That sounded quite ominous, I thought to myself. That's why I got so scared when you said you were meditating in the forest. "He never warned us about you doing those things, but I guess you were too young to be a concern back then," she sighed. "But how could meditation put me in danger?" "Isn't it supposed to be good for you?" I asked. "Yes, I know, and I'm not sure myself." Whenever I tried to ask for more, he would just shut me down, and eventually, I stopped asking. "But what does it have to do with what happened in Claire's room?" I was still trying to make sense of all this information. "I'm not completely certain," she said. "He just said that if your mother or I ever hear any mention from you girls about people with dark holes instead of their eyes or anything unusual, things that don't belong to our world, we should tell him right away." She exhaled in frustration. I guess he never planned on dying that young. I still couldn't make sense of it all, but why? Nana exhaled frustratedly. I don't know, dear, I honestly don't. I prayed that this day would never come. Years passed, and I sort of just forgot about it. Nothing ever happened, and I thought, well, maybe he was just paranoid. I know it's not nice to talk bad about the dead, but what else was I supposed to think? None of the stuff he was talking about made any sense, and I never saw confirmation for any of it. I could understand that. I would find it hard to believe as well if I wasn't seeing strange boys myself. So what do we do now? I asked, hoping she would have a solution. But instead, she just sighed again and said, I think, to begin with, we should stay away from any activities that your father warned me about, and I guess just hope that it doesn't repeat itself. But what if it does? I asked. I honestly don't know, she replied, and I don't know where to look for any information or ask for help. I wasn't left with any instructions on what to do, so I'm just as lost as you are. That was not what I was hoping to hear, but I couldn't blame Nana for not having the answers. If anything, I was probably the one at fault for causing all this. Just my luck, I thought to myself glumly. I looked at Claire. Her little face was still drawn, she was just looking at her cup of tea that she never touched. Her child's hands were still clenching my hand. Nana said, for now, let's try to stay together as much as possible. That night we all slept together in Nana's queen bed. Apollo at the bottom of our feet, as if sensing the tense state we were all in.